Oh my goodness. Is the Twitter feed broken? Ah, good evening. And thank you for enjoying it with the six pack. Maybe you can't see us on Twitter, but you can see us on YouTube having the Scotty six pack, the only podcast here for season 2 to bring you the best stories in Wisconsin sports 6 days a week. I'm your host, Kedrick Stumbris. You can find me on the website formerly known as Twitter. I was going to say you could find me live on the website formerly known as Twitter, but the website formerly known as Twitter seems to be broken for my live features right now. Oh my goodness. You can also find us on Spotify, Apple, wherever your ears get tickled by podcasts. Welcome back to the show. It is good to be back. And today was as good of a reason to kick off what I am dubbing season 2 of the Scotty six pack as possible, because it was really around this time last year that we got back into the swing of things with regular programming. And so this feels as good of a time as any to hit a little bit of the reset button, bring it all back into the fold, not change too much, but provide some updates on where things have been, where things are going now, and then get into the news, because it's been a really, really solid 24 hours to be a Wisconsin sports fan for a random Tuesday. For a random Tuesday, it's been about as good as it can get, especially considering that it doesn't really involve a blockbuster NBA trade, for example, that drops out of nowhere, like we had leading up to last NBA season. And it doesn't really involve baseball news either for the Milwaukee Brewers, but there's still plenty of good news to go around despite that fact. It's been a wild 24 hours to be a Wisconsin football fan, an exciting 24 hours for the most part, one little damper to be a Green Bay Packers fan, and a really, really, really good 24 hours to be a Wisconsin women's hockey fan. We'll touch on that at the end of the show. But while you are here, some housekeeping. We are back here. There may be some new folks here, some new faces, some new ears, some new eyeballs. I'm your host, Kedrick Stumbris. You can find me on the website formerly known as Twitter at Kedrick Stumbris. And here on the Scotty Six Pack Podcast, been doing some work over the summer, improving the setup. Talked about that a little bit on the show before, but also improving the platform on which you can find my written content. Some of us over on Badger Notes have migrated over to write for All Badgers, the Athlon Sports Badgers website. You can find our work there at All Badgers, ALLBADGERS.com. I have a new story up on All Badgers right now that you can find linked in the podcast description. So if you like the work that we've been doing over at Badger Notes, you can go find that same work, that same great coverage over at All Badgers right now. Additionally, some of you may remember friend of the show, Noah Clark, also host of Snap the Pigskin. Pointing to myself for those who are listening on the audio feed. Now also myself, host of Snap the Pigskin, along with Noah. We have episodes up now. There should be a new episode in your feed tomorrow if you are a regular Snap the Pigskin listener, which is now also on YouTube, youtube.com/@snapthepigskin, covering the NFL news of the week. Tomorrow, we are going to start our division previews on Snap the Pigskin. And that is going to start with the AFC and NFC South, if I recall correctly. Yeah, that's right. So we're going to talk about that on the show tomorrow. Very excited to do that with Noah. So while you are here, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the latest news for the Wisconsin Badgers, because I'm going to be headed over to Madison in the coming days, coming weeks, ready to cover the basketball team, ready to cover the football team, as well as, volleyball teams, women's hockey teams, whatever comes and happens. I am here for you with in-depth, in-person coverage to boot. And we should start with the Wisconsin football team. Obviously, in the midst of camp, it sounds like Tyler Van Dyke is starting to pull away in the quarterback competition, away from Braden Locke. Probably good for Wisconsin's prospects this season to have somebody start pulling away. And look, we'll get into this in the next coming days, weeks before the season actually starts. I think I'm a little bit more down on this year's Wisconsin football team than others are in the content space, but I am eager to see what it will look like against Western Michigan, what it will look like against South Dakota, particularly if you have a QB1 taking all of the reps, because last year things did not get off to a hot start, even against Georgia State. But off the field, on the recruiting trail, Wisconsin's been picking up some big wins, and big wins for a big guy. So what, 6'3", 285 pounds, is Xavier Ukpanu committing to Luke Fickell and the Wisconsin Badgers in the class of 2025, a 3-star recruit with, I believe the number is nearly or just over 30 Division I offers. Big guy, big get. Look, a 3-star recruit on the defensive line. I understand maybe that's not super exciting, but it is good for Wisconsin to get what is, one of its preferred options on the defensive line. For Wisconsin to not have to extend a defensive line recruit search out super far into September, October, November before signing day is good, because these are the bodies that make the biggest difference. These are the bodies that are among the most predictable to recruit defensive line bodies that are highly ranked by the recruiting services, that are highly ranked by other schools, highly sought after athletes, these athletes with measurables, with size, with speed. Those athletes on the defensive line tend to replicate, levels of production that match their recruiting value year over year. So for Wisconsin to get someone who, matches these measurables, the measurables that they desire, big, strong, fast, and bring them in early, I think says a lot about how Luke Fickell is succeeding on the recruiting trail. And this is one of a few folks that they have brought in now, along with folks like Torrin Petaway. So look, Xavier Ukpanu, you watch some of the film, and he's got moves. He's got moves with guys that he can kind of just bum rush through, shrug off his shoulder. And I'm not a guy who's really great at, giving you a ton of specifics about defensive line technique. But look, the guy's fast, the guy's strong. He can just shed off some of these offensive linemen at times. He can push guys off just a little bit. He does look like he can improve more on reaction time, reacting to the snap. When I'm watching those highlights, it looks like he can get a little bit of a better jump there. So there is definite room for improvement. But this is a guy who is playing out of Denton, Texas. And look, the high school that he goes to, Geyer High School, look, that's a big boy program in Texas. That's a 6A, the highest level of high school football in Texas. That's huge enrollment sizes, over 2,000 students. I believe it's over 2,500 students per class, something like that, 2275. That's big boy Texas high school football, to pull a guy out of there at a position that is always going to be of need for a big boy program like Wisconsin. That's great. Tells me that, Wisconsin is still hitting the recruiting trail hard, getting guys with high pedigree from high pedigree high school programs who are highly sought after. This is exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing him come and play in Madison. Football teams that aren't necessarily in Madison, but folks who are going to be, playing football for our favorite teams very soon, the Green Bay Packers. Matt LaFleur today, in media availability before training camp. What is this? Day 10 now, something like that. I was at training camp last week with Noah Clark, just before we recorded an episode of Snap the Pigskin from up in the Fox Valley. Today, however, Matt LaFleur comes out and says starters are going to play in week 1 against the Cleveland Browns, that preseason game coming up this Saturday. And that's exciting. And not just exciting, but in my opinion, important. Not just the guys on the offensive side of the ball. I think that's important too, and I will get to that in just a moment, but particularly on the defensive side. Frankly, based on my observations from being at practice, the defense looks good. It is it is what's the word I'm looking for? It is a process that Jeff Hafley is going through to find who his best 11 are going to be on the field with so many of these new defensive backs. And that could lead to real trouble early in the season. But the process they're going through is continuing to rotate tons of these bodies next to with Javon Bullard out there, who I think is going to be that slot position more often than not for the Packers. But you're also having Evan Williams out there as safety too most of the time out there next to Xavier McKinney. You're rotating guys like Anthony Johnson Jr. in there as well, who have some real snaps under their belt from a season ago. Jeff Hafley seems to be pushing all the right buttons here to get folks to compete with one another. You have Eric Stokes and Jair Alexander 1-2 on the depth chart right now that the Packers released yesterday, telling you that this defense is largely healthy. You have linebackers who are incredibly, incredibly young. Right now, you have Edgerrin Cooper, who is not getting snaps with he's not getting snaps with the ones. One, he's injured. He dropped out of practice the day that I was there last week. And beyond that, he's listed on the depth chart in the 2 deep, but not with the ones. You got these young guys who are going to need to step up, who are going to need to show something. And for the ones to compete hard enough to keep those spots, having these starters go out there and still compete in the preseason, I think is not just good for scheme install. I think it's good to continue the competition week over week until week 1 of the regular season. You have a young team. You have a hungry team. But a team that got a lot of success last year, and you don't want to let them rest on their laurels, so to speak, of being the youngest team to ever go and win a playoff game. You need to give these young players reasons to compete week in, week out, even before the regular season starts. Let everyone know your spot is not safe. It's easy to do that at spots like wide receiver, because there's a ton of mouths to feed there and not a lot of snaps to go around. It's harder to convince some of these guys who, these young guys in the linebacker core who think, I was a high draft pick here. I was a 2nd or 3rd round pick. I'm obviously going to be part of this. Not if you're saying, no, everyone's got to compete for these snaps week in, week out, preseason week 1, preseason week 2, preseason week 3. I think that's important. And on the offensive side of the ball, we saw what Jordan Love could do. We did. And that's important. I don't think we have any reason to think that he's going to suffer a significant step back this year. I think there will be some regression to the mean, and he'll look something, he'll probably regress a little bit off of last season, off of the last few games of last season, particularly off of the Dallas game last season. But should perform well. There's lots of wide receivers to continue building this rapport with. Clearly, if you've been watching film out of training camp, the illegal clips, so to speak, or if you've been to training camp, Jordan Love's got a real rapport with Romeo Doubs. Real rapport there. He's really building that with guys like Dontavian Wicks, with guys like Jaden Reed. But there's more guys to build that rapport with, Bo Melton, Malik Heath, what have you. Having Jordan Love hopefully go out there and throw balls to, if not all of these guys, some of these guys, is good to keep everybody on the same page, keep everybody fresh, and also to have Jordan Love, continue to get more reps in what's closer to live game action against what is an altered offensive line. You don't have, Josh Nijman waiting in the wings to come in there for you if you really need him. You don't have David Bakhtiari helping the team, in the very beginning of the season, right? Week 1. You don't have the same reserves that are going to rotate in and out. Any single one of these offensive line snaps are going to be valuable. So that brings me to the one big damper for the Green Bay Packers right now, which is Jordan Morgan. Jordan Morgan exited practice today. After last week, I declared him the Packers starting right guard. And after yesterday, when the Green Bay Packers listed him on the depth chart as the starting right guard. You really hope that is temporary and very temporary, because this offensive line is not really built to withstand injuries. I would rather not have both Josh Myers and Royce Newman out there. Not to mention, Zach Tom was coming into play live reps for the first time at training camp today. What is supposed to be your starting five on the offensive line have not played together at all during training camp yet. Fortunately, Christian Watson, who suffered a little bit of a tough hit from Evan Williams on family night, Saturday night, according to Matt LaFleur, sounds like he's going to be okay. But I think we can be excited to watch the Green Bay Packers starters play in week 1 of the preseason and continue to get more glimpses of what this team is going to look like in the year ahead. Because Jeff Hafley obviously has a lot to install on the defensive side. Matt LaFleur has talked at times during training camp here how he is challenging Jordan Love as well to be more familiar, more comfortable with the offense. And they're finding more of these plays that he is comfortable running. That's the whole point of running the 2-minute drill at the end of every practice, is that it gives this coaching staff real insight into what it is Jordan Love likes to do, what it is that he is comfortable with. And not that they're going to throw something real difficult at Jordan Love. Jordan Love's not going to do anything crazy, go really out of anything vanilla during the preseason, but it's just more reasons for Jordan Love and the rest of the offense together to continue to keep getting comfortable, particularly some of these young tight ends too, that I haven't even gotten to mention yet, because those tight ends were in and out of the rotation with injuries all season long. And now it's their show, this young tight end room show. And young tight ends are tough. Tight ends are usually bad. Their first year in the league, their second year in the league. It's tough. So getting more preseason reps for the ones is going to be really important moving forward for the Green Bay Packers. I want to touch on one more thing before we go, which is I think Olympic champion and head coach of the Wisconsin Badgers women's hockey team, Mark Johnson, just landed the best women's hockey prospect in the entire world. And she's only 16. And I think she may have been the best women's hockey prospect in the entire world for a year plus now. And that's including anyone above her age. It's quite impressive. And you can read more about this for my piece at All Badgers for Athlon Sports that will be linked in this podcast description. But out of Slovakia, Nila Lupasinova commits to Wisconsin yesterday. And look, I'm not going to spoil everything out of the piece that I wrote, but know this. Nila is an absolute athletic freak. She is a phenomenon in the world of women's hockey for this Wisconsin Badgers team that is seeking an 8th national title this upcoming season, that has won a record 7 national titles. She is coming in not just as like the top ranked women's hockey prospect in the world. She's also coming in as someone who has apparently dreamed of playing for the Wisconsin Badgers. She is from Slovakia and has dreamed of being a Wisconsin Badger. She wears number 88 while she is playing prep hockey in upstate New York, just an hour away from Buffalo, because her favorite hockey player is Patrick Kane, who grew up in Buffalo, New York. She knows hockey. She knows hockey. She knows scoring. She knows creative scoring. She's the first women's player to score a Michigan goal in international play. She has been scoring, high-flying, setting absurd numbers in leagues with players 5 years older than she is. She's been playing in Slovak men's leagues and dominating. in age groups older than her own. She is an incredibly, incredibly impressive prospect. And I detail this more in my piece for Athlon Sports that you can find again linked in the podcast description. But where she is coming in the recruiting timeline for Wisconsin could not be more perfect for what Mark Johnson has cooking. It's a recruiting masterclass as Wisconsin goes to Bishop Kearney once again and lands just an incredible, incredible, incredible talent that I have kind of been gushing over all day. It's really exciting. But I think that's going to do it here for the season 2 premiere of the Scotty Six Pack. Wanted to do some quick hitters as we get ready for the season ahead. We will be back with you Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, at the very least, and talk some more. Wisconsin football talk is coming up. Going to give you reasons for optimism, reasons for pessimism about the season. We'll do that very soon. Start previewing some position previews. Also preview what I am looking forward to seeing in the Green Bay Packers preseason game. But until then, I've been your host, Kedrick Stumbris. You can find me here on the Scotty Six Pack, youtube.com/@Scotty6Pack, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or find me at the website formerly known as Twitter at Kedrick Stumbris, and follow the podcast at Scotty Six Pack for the latest updates in Wisconsin sports. Go find my latest work on Athlon Sports, linked in the podcast description if you want to learn more about the Wisconsin Badgers. And tomorrow you can find me on the Snap the Pigskin with Noah Clark. We'll link that show in the podcast description as well. Spotify, Apple, youtube.com/@Snap the Pigskin. Till we talk to you all again tomorrow on Wisconsin.